Good evening and welcome to this Melbourne Symphony Orchestra event. Lovely to see so many of you here with us in the Ysaÿe Auditorium, and welcome to those of you joining us online. My name's Nick Bochner. I'm the Head of Learning and Engagement at the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, and that means that I get the great privilege of looking after all of the learning-related programs that we do, and I can tell you there are a lot of them. We've got concerts for under fives, we've got concerts for schools, we do things all over the place, and we also have an amazing emerging artist. Masterclass is part of that. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're gathered here today on the traditional lands of the people of the Eastern Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and acknowledge that on these lands there have been many, many thousands of years of music making and storytelling and coming together. So, as I said, thank you so much for joining us for this masterclass with the extraordinary James Ehnes. Now, why wouldn't you be here to see him? He's one of the most sought after and celebrated violinists of our time. And actually, as it happens, he's also one of the nicest guys I've ever met. It's a really powerful combination. We're just so lucky to have him, and he's actually our 2025 Artist in Residence. He's been with us now for 4 weeks here. He's explored a very wide range of repertoire and performances, which has culminated this week in a performance of the monumental Brahms Violin Concerto. I saw that last night. If you haven't seen it yet, you must get a ticket and be there tomorrow. It is absolutely not to be missed. Tonight, though, James will be working with young musicians from the Australian National Academy of Music, which we affectionately call ANAM. We have a really important partnership with ANAM, and it involves various aspects. And one of them is masterclasses such as this. But also this week, we have 18 of their young musicians performing in the MSO concert, so live on stage in the actual concert, side by side with the professionals. And it's something that's really inspiring, both for the young musicians, and it's wonderful for the MSO seasoned players as well, to have that youth next to them. And as a former cellist, I know just how daunting a prospect these masterclasses are for the young musicians. So we're very, very grateful that they're allowing us to come into this really quite intimate learning space where they make themselves vulnerable. These types of events are also really, really important for emerging artists, so we would like to thank the City of Melbourne for their support. So the person you've actually come to see, James Ehnes, please join me in welcoming him to the stage. So, James, thank you so much for being here tonight. Now, I just checked, because I know that you've been coming here for a while. I looked back. Apparently, you've been coming here since 2008.
Yes.
So you've got a really established relationship, much more than sort of your traditional fly-in, fly-out soloist who might arrive, you know, the night before rehearsal and be on the plane, the first plane they can get on out of Melbourne afterwards. Is that something you like to do with all the orchestras that you visit?
I think maybe as I've gotten older, I do look for relationships that are more grounded rather than just totally transactional. But this has always been a really special place to me. Actually, the very first visit I had here back in 2008 was 2 consecutive weeks. So it gave me the chance to get to know the orchestra, get to know the city in a way that it started things off on the right foot. You know, I got to fall in love with Melbourne and become friendly with so many of the players, and that, I think, played a big role in starting off what has turned out to be a really wonderful long-term relationship. I mean, this is, I think, about my 10th visit to Melbourne, which I feel very lucky to be able to say that.
Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. It's great for us, obviously, as well. Is it? So you mentioned getting to know the players. Is that a big part of what keeps you coming back to Melbourne, or is it more than that?
I think it's everything. I mean, this orchestra, well, you know, this is a very special group of people, as well as a very special group of musicians. The projects that I've been involved with over the years have been a combination of your sort of standard concerto engagement. There have been a fair number of these play direct programs, things that are very, very immersive with the orchestra. There have been chamber music projects, several recordings. So that's given me an opportunity to get to know people in a more in a deeper way, I guess I would say. But also, I just really love the city. It's a great city, and as a Canadian, I've always felt very at home in Australia. I think it sort of feels like upside down Canada, and
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
love it. Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. And this is the first time you've done a masterclass here for us, this type of activity? I mean, for I assume other people have used you for that.
Yeah, the first one with MSO, I think.
Yeah.
I hope. I don't know.
So. Well, speaking of the masterclass, I think we better get on with it. We've got our first performance tonight will be from Theonie Wang, and she will play the first movement of Nielsen's Violin Concerto Opus 33 with associate artist Louisa Breen. Please make welcome Theonie and Louisa.
Great. Thank you for that. I really, really enjoyed it. It was very, very beautiful playing. You know, really, really nice. Let's go through it from the beginning. Mainly, the things I'm going to talk about, I think they're going to fall into a bit of a pattern of where our destinations are within phrases and avoiding certain pitfalls that make destinations appear that shouldn't appear. Can I get your A really quickly? So from the beginning, the pacing of how it unfolds, it's really slow, right? There's all sorts of stuff going on in the violin, but the actual moments of change, whether it's harmonic transitions or other landmarks, those are quite spread out. And I think that I find that the opening of this piece can seem kind of like, what? Like, what's going on? You know, I think we need to think very carefully about where those landmarks are going to be and thinking of getting to that destination. So from the beginning, basically right there is a very big moment. And I think we need to kind of understand that as a moment. And then from here, there were a fair number of things that you did in there that were in isolation, very natural, but I didn't understand then how this moved all the way to there. Yep. So and these are going to be minor things, but I'll just have you play from the beginning, thinking of, you know, the ties through the bar that you see in the accompaniment, thinking of that as being, in a way, tying your thoughts together. So you, whatever, how to say this, whatever inflections are within that sentence that you're saying, you're not putting in any major periods. It's maybe commas at best.
Yep.
Right there is the first one. Da 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 dee dum. That it was like you landed on that G sharp, which took away from the impulse of that. I'm sorry, the G natural before the C sharp. I think that downbeat, your first double stop of this, that's a mini destination. This is not. Yeah. No, sorry. Keep playing. Yes, that's exactly what I meant. I think here, let's see, where were you? What you did here is probably about, for me, the max, but it was very effective. But then here, I think that this was such a landing, and then you only had half a bar until you got to the next place. I think the way, I don't want to make you give up a moment, but I think if you can think of this here, a little bit the way you dealt with this, so it's something within it, but it is still continuing. This was so effective, and I think that thinking that through to this part will be great. Can go from right where the changes at the poco accelerando. Great. Terrific. I think that makes a huge difference because in a way it keeps all the interest that you had before, but it makes it shorter in a way because it's all going towards, I mean, really only in a certain sense, only 3 things have happened, right? Which is nice, because it messes with your sense of time, I think, in a good way. Right here, this is the first thing I'm going to point out that I'm noticing this is to a smaller degree than sometimes, there's something that you do that I fear it strikes me as a tiny bit of a habit, which is often extending the note right before an arrival. Okay. You know, I mean, those, and I think that if you extend it too much, then you get a little stuck physically, like, you expect to land on a certain point. It's like if you're walking downstairs and the rise of the stair is a little off, and you're like, oh, wow, that's a little deeper than I thought. You know, it's a slight thing, but just think, can you start from letter A, being very sort of destination-oriented with your timing? You know, can you just take there from the B flats? You'd be a little bit more, I mean, slower through it, but with the intention of it being just creating a little bit more anticipation for the listener. It felt just 1% too easy moving through those triplets. This is the tiniest detail. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful sound and atmosphere you've created here. These are tiny, tiny suggestions. We need to change the bow there because we just need to. I feel like if there's a way to sing through the bar a little more completely, it sounds a little bit phrased in the middle right now. I think this. I would make it a little bit more dancing. It got ever so slightly triplety, dum da dee da da, you know. And I think there's a little bit of that life to it. That sets that up again. It's like you're hinting at some of the much more dramatic music that's going to happen later. We go from the 1 sharp. Actually, I'm going to have you do that one more. You know what it is? It's that I'm hearing da-dum, da-dum instead of da-dum, da-dum. Yeah. Could you just go from that bar of... It sounds slightly da dee da 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 dee da da da, like not quite. But if I were listening to it without knowing it, I would question the notation of that. I think that da 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 da. It's all a little bit more connected, like as if it's written, you know, with the separation of the beams there to show the rhythm, but it actually makes it distracting. Like if it were beamed all the way through, I don't think you'd play it that way, because it would seem more apart from it. So I think that's a thing in the text that is affecting the way you're interpreting it. How are we doing on time? Do I have 2 more minutes? Oh, yeah. Can you just take right there from the C sharp? You know, actually, can you just play really off the piano? Da, dum, ba da 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 dum, da 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 dum. Yeah, it's still, I'm hearing. So it's, in a way, you're, if you just play the bigger beats, can you take that second bar of it? Sorry. One more time. Maybe the top one, sure. Really great playing. I think from here, I want to set you up for success with an orchestra that is not going to be as flexible and as incredibly kind as your wonderful pianist. I mean, really, the great challenge of this whole section, and this part is really hard to play, it's really quite incredible what she's doing here, is you have to fit within this line. I mean, you're really just kind of playing above the actual music of the piece, right? Dee dum da dum da dum ba dum ba dum da, and then all this here, like dee da dee dum bum bum bum. So this all sort of has to fit within that, and I think that as you play it, it would be. How mean can you be? You know, maybe at your next rehearsal, sort of taking more of the lead in that to sort of train the hands into, into following the horse rather than leading the horse. This was great. This was great. I'm afraid I do need to move on, but it's really the same types of ideas. This da dee da 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 da. So really, I think as I've talked about this part, what I'm realizing in my own mind, what I want to feel is it just moving by the large beats. Dum, da 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 dum, da 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 dum. This was the same type of thing as before. This was very beautiful. I did wonder if at times in the lyrical playing, you might want to find a few moments to just open it up a little bit more, because the soft playing is really, I mean, it's really intoxicating because you make this very beautiful sound on the instrument, but I think there's a danger of it all being quite gentle in the soft playing. So maybe just look for moments to come out of that texture a little bit, particularly when you have repeated patterns and things like this, so that you give yourself room. You know, if you're already at a pianissimo there, then you don't really have anywhere to go. So that's a very minor thing. Anyway, congratulations. Really nice to hear it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Theonie, for that stunning performance and for letting us sort of share those it is quite an intimate experience watching someone be coached and learning how to improve. James, while we wait for our next performer, I'd just love to hear a little bit about your approach to teaching, particularly in this situation where we're giving you sort of, 19 and a half minutes with someone. Yeah. It's quite difficult, isn't it? How do you ensure that they get the most out of it? And then also, we've probably got some aspiring young violinists in the audience. I bet we do, who are also, is this a valuable thing for them to watch as well?
It's very valuable, very important that you're all here. I don't know, I think the thing I like, that I find uniquely challenging about situations like this is I believe that the best role I can fill is to make the player feel like they're playing a little bit better at the end than they were at the beginning. This isn't, I think very rarely in a circumstance like this would you ever want to say, hey, that thing you do, it's all wrong. And luckily in a class like this, that's not going to be the case because these are all terrific players. But, there's sometimes are challenges like that when I'll go into a situation like this where I have very little time and there might be something that I feel is really fundamentally problematic, and I have to really figure out how to approach that, because I think it's irresponsible for me maybe not to bring something up that I feel needs attention, but it's maybe more irresponsible for me to either tear something down that I can't attempt to build back up, or to somehow make someone feel bad about their playing. That's the last thing I want to do. I remember very clearly being in these situations myself, of playing. And it's an awkward thing, right? Like, as musicians, we're here to share these beautiful stories and play beautiful music for people, and at the same time, in a situation like this, like literally my job is to come up and tell them things that I wish they did differently. That's so wrong, right? So I hope to always make it clear that I try to, in the brief period of time I have to listen to them, I try to get whatever little sense I can of who they are, what they're trying to say, and then I try to, through my experiences and maybe my expertise in the role, say, well, I think if you do it this way, I think that will help you tell your story a little better. I'm definitely not the kind of teacher that says, well, these are my fingerings, these are my bowings, go buy my CD and do that. That's like, I'm very, I really want players to play who they are. And to be who they are. And then obviously there will be things where I might say, I don't agree with that for this, that, or the other reason. But I find more of my role is to facilitate their communication of their personality and their ideals.
It's a beautiful collaborative approach, which I guess is why we've seen you back here so many times. It seems to be fundamental to who you are as a musician. It's wonderful. I think our next violinist is all ready to go. So we've got Lili Stephens, who's going to play the first movement of Ysaÿe's Sonata for Solo Violin, number 4 in E minor. Please make Lili welcome.
Great, thanks for that. Thank you. I'm gonna just, do you mind if I'm gonna just put this out this way so I'm not sort of lurking over your shoulder. Great. I think I like your approach to the piece very much. So this is just gonna be like details. I think I am sometimes guilty of speaking less plainly than I should. And I was going to talk about this whole sort of, idea of pacing. What I really would like to say is that I think these triplets are a little too fast.
Sure, okay.
I think that something about the lento maestoso character, that there's something quite grand about this, right? And dee-da-da-da. It's only a very little bit, but they were a little bit da-da-da-dum, pushing forward just a touch. I think that if there's this grandeur to the opening, that when it reaches this point, it then sort of, it supernovas a little bit, right? And could we just take a little bit of that from the beginning with that in mind?
Yeah, sure. Do you mind if I just...
Yeah. So that each one of the notes is, rather than just being sort of a single gesture, there are really 3 different notes to it. I want you to try something where I'm feeling those slurs more. How to say this? So that it's sort of stitching them together, so it's a very slow pendulum of 2 through those bars. nice. I think this one, it's such an unusual figuration, dee-da-da-da-da-da-dee. I think that needs to be just slightly more enunciated. Like all the notes are there as you're playing it, but it sounds cluttered because of the way it's organized.
Yes.
I think that in a way at the beginning of this, it could also be a little bit more dee-dee-dee-da-da-da, so there's a little bit more enunciation to it that then this allargando, I think it's just sort of as there are more and more notes, it's causing it to expand. And I think I would keep that more sempre forte, not just in terms of dynamic, but that the whole thing builds through to this so that when we do finally get to that it feels like a natural place for an arrival. I felt like I lost a little bit of the sense of where we were going around here.
Sure.
Here, that and that, I think it's a little bit too separate. Like I think the commas, it's a good idea to be able to enunciate that.
Yeah.
But I think the idea of the slur is sort of the shape and the connection, even if we're not doing an entirely legato thing there. Can you take from right there at the a tempo and thinking of the grandeur, the nobility of the nature of this. So this one is interesting to me. I mean, written for Fritz Kreisler, and Fritz Kreisler's favorite Bach, by all accounts, was which he played at many, many concerts. I think that that's exactly what he had in mind. So thinking of that the nature of that partita and the connection to this. Really good. The thing that I didn't quite find convincing is I wasn't sure where some of these notes, I wasn't sure you were sure exactly how you were shaping them. It was like I heard this, like sort of that little bit of indecision, like I'm not quite sure what I'm saying right here. I think you've got great instincts in this, and I would like to hear you be a little bit more stepping forward and saying what it is you want to say. And it could be that you haven't quite figured that all out yet. I mean, it's a long journey, of course, learning these things. But can you just play it with a little bit, even if you're kind of experimenting a little bit, say it a little bit more like you mean it.
Okay.
I think that had a real character to it. I think that there were times where I wanted to hear the hanging on the long beats a little longer. Dum da da dee ba dum. This was kind of an example here. So that there's a swing to them, like there's an acceleration at the end of the beat that you have to get to the next beat, but you're not moving before you have to. And when you get to the end here, I think it's great to sort of point out that we've reached the end of the theme, so that this next bit is very clearly sort of a variation upon that, right? Let's have you play this theme one more time, and then just go on.
Okay.
Actually, I'm curious to have you one thing. Da, dee, dee. The line. I think what happens here is we lose that they're just these straight semiquavers. This note is a little bit shortened, and I think, can you just take right from just thinking of that upper line? Great. So now, thinking here as we're adding complicated factors here. This line is important too, and I feel like it was a little bit pushed to the side of your consciousness. You know, just take right from the top page. So, so we're feeling those big beats. We can have as much flexibility as we want around those big beats, but the big beats are going to come when they're going to come. Yeah. Great. I have a little suggestion right here. Actually, thinking about this fermata, that's a tricky one. Something about this still needs to feel like it's not on a strong beat. So maybe extending it to a point where you can feel an imaginary beat over that tie. I think it was that note there. That D, and I think that maybe you did the same thing on the F sharp. I think that they were elongated to the point of feeling like a landing. Okay. So just massage that slightly differently so we don't put too much importance on it. You know. You take just from there. And there, I think that this is, we were talking about this in the Nielsen a little bit, about stitching things together to make sure that your destination remains clearly. I think that this maybe is too big of a break, because it is the ending of one thing, but it's also... It's also the continuation of another.
From here again?
Yeah, that'd be great. Take right there. Can you give me a more tasty vibrato up on that high C sharp? Just right from there. Great, yeah. I think that's good. This idea of the poco forte, this piece in particular, Ysaÿe really struggled over the notation of this. Different versions of his own part have seemingly conflicting information. And I think that a lot of what you find in Ysaÿe's parts are warnings of what not to do as much as actually telling you what to do. Like, so this mezzo forte here, in a later copy of his part, he changed it to like sempre forte, which doesn't make really any sense unless you imagine that violinist after violinist after violinist came to play for him and played his mezzo forte like a piano. Yeah. It's like, don't play a piano. But this one is a funny one because it's like poco forte. It's not like it's forte, but I think it should sing a little bit. I like the character, a lot of what you're doing, but I think that because so much of this is so soft, I think that if it just opens up a little bit sonically, keeping that character, the dreaminess of it, it will sing better and it will capture the audience's imagination. Just so, can you take it from the top again? Just opening up the mechanism 2%. Just sorry, briefly, dum da da dum ba dum ba da dum. As you got a little bit more animated there, dum da dum da da dum da da. You know, and I think in a way we need to fight that impulse to just keep it held. Very beautiful. This was really nice. We need to move on, so I'm going to just briefly say, if you start this off, can we find a sound here that's really very special? And even with all the soft playing that's come earlier in the movement, if we can find something unique here, right? Yeah. Can you actually try more bow, but slightly further out? Yeah, that's really nice. What happens if you go even further out? Okay, yeah, that's starting to buckle a little bit. So you'll find it, you know, like you want to, with sounds like that, you want to go as far as you can't, and then be like, okay, can't, and then back it off like 1%. Yep. There's my line, right there. That'll be great. And yeah, basically, I mean, and you did this, but I think just to reiterate that this entire thing is all basically a single shape towards the end of the movement, keeping very goal-oriented with all of that. All right, I think we need to move on, but thanks very much for the beautiful playing.
Thank you so much, Lili. That was absolutely fantastic. It's quite brave to play one of those pieces all on your own. I think I watched. Was it last night? Only it feels like a while ago. You played the Brahms Violin Concerto, and then you played one of those.
Yeah, the third sonata. Yeah.
It was absolutely stunning. The Brahms Violin Concertos. Yeah, it's like it's not enough for you. You got to keep going and play. And the audience needed it. They wanted it. Wow. But it's what an extraordinary thing to play after that whole concerto. Anyway, thanks for that.
My pleasure.
I'm going to be a bit cheeky and ask you one more question. I mean, an amazing violinist like you needs an amazing instrument. That's quite a special instrument, right?
Yeah, this is
tell us a little bit
sure.
About that?
This is a Stradivarius that was made in 1715, right in the heart of his so-called golden period, where he had access to the most spectacular wood, and he was really at the height of his powers. I'm very, very lucky to have played on this violin for 26 years now. So it feels like an appendage or a family member or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's really wonderful because unfortunately, like, some of these violins, they're so valuable and they get treated like collector's items, and sometimes they end up in glass cases and in the hands of a good violinist is where it should be. Does it have that sort of heritage where you know who it's passed through, which players had it before you?
Anything before 1870 is conjecture. That's when it first shows up quite clearly in the literature. It was in Paris and actually belonged for a very brief period of time to a violinist named Marsic, who has a connection to Ysaÿe. They were classmates together at the Conservatoire in Liège in Belgium. Marsic has not been remembered to the same degree as Ysaÿe, but is a very important person. He was the teacher of Carl Flesch. So if you ever do your Flesch scale book, that's the guy. And he was the dedicatee of the first Saint-Saëns violin sonata, probably some other pieces of that era. And he was the one that made the famous violin and piano arrangement of the Meditation from Thais of Massenet. So Marsic played on this instrument briefly, and so sometimes this instrument is referred to as the Marsic or ex-Marsic, though I found out some years ago that, well, I had seen his name, listed in these log books of that he had owned it for only a very brief period of time, which seemed strange because, I love it. I think, well, why would you only have it for less than a year? And then I dug a little deeper, and it turns out that Mr. Marsic put down a deposit on it and never came up with the rest of the money, so they had to repo it, get it back. So yeah, that's a funny story about his connection to the instrument. But a lot of the 20th century was not played professionally. It's definitely been used over the years. Like, it's been really nicely taken care of and preserved, but it definitely shows signs of wear. You see wear patterns on the instrument of just people's hands being on it, which is understandable because it's a really nice violin to play on. I feel grateful to be a part of its. I mean, like I said, I've been playing on this for so long now, and I haven't even had it for even 10% of its lifespan yet. But hopefully, I'll get there.
That's a beautiful thing. Thanks for sharing that. Our final violinist this evening is Olivia Kowalik, and she's going to play us the first movement of, I think this is one of my personal favourite violin concertos, the Barber Violin Concerto, Opus 14, and Louisa Breen will be back on stage to assist her with that. Please make them welcome, Olivia and Louisa.
Very, very beautiful from both of you. Really nice. I like your approach to it very much. I think I want to talk about something that is difficult to talk about. It's difficult to put into words, but I think that what you could do more often than you're doing is playing for corners of the rooms. There's a little feeling I have of something really wonderful happening in sort of a circle around you like that. And it's not exactly about playing louder. It's probably a part of it, but it's one of these mysterious things we do with projection on an instrument. And it's something that I think we rarely have opportunities to work on because in a lesson, you're in a studio. And I remember getting frustrated as a student when sometimes I'd be playing a concerto for my teacher, and it's like, louder, it's got to be louder. So, well, you're 4 feet away from me. It doesn't need to be louder. Like, I'm playing for you right now. And she's like, yeah, but it needs to be for... But here we are in this big space, and while maintaining the character that you had, can you play the opening thinking of as if the person that you're really trying to communicate is in the top corner somewhere up there? Can't see. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's sort of a mental exercise as much as anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was easy. That was kind of exactly what I'm talking about. Now, enjoy the richness of the instrument a little bit more. And when we get to... Enjoy each one of those notes so that so that when you're speaking, as if you're enunciating to a corner of the room, there needs to be a certain clarity in the way you speak it that's a little different than if you're kind of mumbling for someone up close. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to super exaggerate. It just went like this, a little bit in those spots, as if they didn't need to really pay attention to it, but they do. It's like really slight. Can you just go from... Keep playing, keep playing. Now think of where you're going with this whole thing. Yeah, better. I think on the bow changes, if I were drawing it, there were still little dips in the brush. I think that whole thing just spins on its way there. Can you just take that one more time from the bottom? Thinking even wherever you do change bows, that idea of it spinning in ascent doesn't ever dip.
Okay. That's right.
Yeah, that was better. There was one note near the beginning of it. It was maybe that G. It was one of those notes where it had like this little extra bit of vibrato. And it just stuck out just the tiniest little bit. Anyway, I loved that idea though, like from around here through the end, that just had this magical quality of just floating, floating, floating. That's wonderful. This next bit, I would be a little bit more triplety with these da dee 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 dee. So as if you were feeling all of them da 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 dee da dee da 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 dee dee da, and it really makes that duple stand out nicely in relief. You just play a little bit of that, and also just thinking really of the kind of broad arc over each bar. Okay, I'll have you just go on here. There's something I wanted to say here, and I can't remember what it was, so I'll just have you play it again. It was actually just a little bit of the articulation, the amount of sound, something from the bottom of the instrument, the way you were approaching it, it just sort of fell off about 2 meters in front of you. I think you just need to think of ba-ba-ba-ba-bum, da-da-da-da-dum, getting those a little bit more out to the corners of the room again. Can you just take from the beginning of that passage one more time? I think another thing to think about this is this animando poco a poco. I think that it was basically, it felt pretty listesso. You know, whether you start just a little bit under where you were or you accelerate a little bit past where you were, I think we can add a little bit more of that feeling of direction of tempo through it. Here, I think also this poco piumoso, it's funny how he has it written basically on the downbeat, but I think in essence it's from that second beat. But I'd like for this da dee dee da da dee 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 da dee da da dee da dee that it's clear that we are in a slightly more nervous, forward-looking tempo, just right from the beginning of that. This is a difficult one to pull off here, but dee da 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 da da. He's basically writing out this acceleration through that passage, and I think maybe here that could be slightly clearer how we're despite the motion intervallically being in duples, that we're in triplets that are just accelerating, rolling down the hill. Let's take it right from number 7. Actually, rather than taking time at the end of that, I think I would go through da dee 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 da da dee da da dee da dee dum bum. So you set that tempo.
Okay.
Yeah. interesting thing. This is super subtle. This is stuff that is not going to get picked up by very many people, but they might register it without knowing what it is. When you play notes like that, when you change down bow to up bow, the vibrato is totally consistent through the bow change. When you go up bow to down bow, the vibrato momentarily stops. Yeah, like, I don't know. That's one of those things that once you're aware of it, I think you'll fix it immediately. But can you do it one more time?
Yeah.
Pick this up from 8. I think at 8, whatever your dynamic is here, I think you should not go down as far as you do there to save. That pianissimo is so special, and it was very special what you did, but I felt like I just heard it. You know, maybe this is, say, from a mezzo something, only back to a mezzo something, or certainly not pianissimo. From just right from 8 will be good. Just tiny little ideas here. To fight the nature of the instrument here, I think you basically have to start that crescendo kind of a bar earlier, or else this just dips out of the texture too much. That just as sort of a practical matter, just to crescendo down the phrase. Dee da dee da dee da dee da dee. It's going to be slightly more conversational, but off of the piano. Here, this is great. I think if you play this with orchestra, like, use as many bows as you want, because it's so difficult to have anything heard in here. And the beginnings of these da-da-da-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum, the bottom particularly here has to really be belted out, so that in a way you have to have the type of articulation to the note that draws the ear's attention, because sonically it's going to be so buried in the texture that we need to, the inflection is going to be what's going to draw the attention, and then there's a chance of actually hearing the notes through it. I'm afraid we have to wrap this up now. This is the same type of stuff here as we were talking about, that same idea there, if it just sort of swirls up and along. This was very dramatic and beautiful here. I think you can keep the volume and intensity up a little longer, so it's still fairly threatening, I think, in this first bit of it, and then as the register goes up, you sort of gauge that. I think there could be a tiny bit more buoyancy to those da-dum, bum, dee-dee-dee-dee, da-dum, so that it's a curious mix of they're not really da-da-da-da, but they're also not da-da-da-da. There's a little bit of a lift to them, I think would be nice. And actually, that's going to bring me back to one last thing. Where was it that I was thinking? It was this idea of something being a little bit more up in the air. Now, where was that? Oh yeah, these here. These A's here are very much landings. These ones, I think you can think of them as, you throw up a ball in the air. The higher you throw it, the longer it takes for it to land. And I think these ones need to be sort of tossed increasingly high. It's funny, there's this pianist I work with, a wonderful, wonderful guy named Andy Armstrong, who he talks a lot about down sounds and up sounds. And it's such a curious thing on the piano, right? Because, the very nature of you're always going down, but you have to create sounds that go up so often. And I think we need to think about that sometimes, too. Anyway, beautiful. So nice to hear it. Congratulations. And thank you for being here. Thank you. Real pleasure. Sounds great.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Olivia. And unfortunately, with that third performance, that brings us to the end of this marvellous event. Thank you all for joining us here in the Ysaÿe Auditorium, and thank you to those of you who have joined us online. This has been live streamed. It will be available for streaming for about 6 months from now on the MSO's YouTube channel. Can you please give another enormous round of applause to the violinists Theonie Wang, Lili Stephens, Olivia Kowalik for their exceptional performances. It's wonderful to see these young people. We know that the future of our art form is in good hands. So special thanks to them. I just wanted to do a quick shout out to Louisa Breen as well, because piano reductions are incredibly unrewarding to play, and she really, I was sitting there listening to that, I actually really felt like I had the whole orchestra there. She creates those sounds, so she's a wonderful musician to have here with us. But of course, the real highlight is having someone like James with us. It's been wonderful having you in residence with the orchestra for these weeks. So thank you very much for spending all this time, the concerts, the play directs, everything you've done, and this performance as well. So thank you so much.
My great pleasure. Thank
you. And as I said before, if you haven't already seen him play this week, and even if you have, there are tickets still available for tomorrow night. If you want to hear the Brahms Violin Concerto played, how it's meant to be played, you need to be there tomorrow. And of course, it will give you the opportunity to see some more of the incredible talent that we have at ANAM, because those young musicians will be playing side by side with the MSO musicians in Ravel's Daphnis and Chloe. So thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a very good evening. Thank you.
Yeah.